in love with him and we're going to obey him. And I'll explain the reason why again for us to turning to the east. We're turning to the east primarily because Shlomo has said, if your people are scattered all over the world, and they turn back towards this place, which we know is in the east. If we would turn towards our land, that's what he said. If you turn towards our land and we would say that we're sorry, then Yah said he would listen to us, because he wants to hear from us. To be honest with you, he really does. So let's turn to the east. I say, Yahweh, we thank you today for this opportunity to come together. We bless your Torah. You are our King. You are Elohim, Yahweh. You have selected us from all the peoples on the face of this earth and given us your Torah, Yahweh. We bless you, for you're the giver of the Torah. Yahweh, we thank you because you are our Elohim. You are the King of the universe. And Yahweh, you have given us the Torah of truth, and you've implanted eternal life within us. So we thank you. We give you praise. We give you adoration, Yahweh. We bow our souls down to you, Yahweh. We want to hear what you have to say to us. So we ask that you will be with us tonight in this opportunity to study your Torah. Hallelujah. 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 Praise be to the Holy One of Israel. All right. So this week, before I get started, though, does anyone have any questions from last week's study or anything, or something that we didn't go over and you want to get some clarity on before we talk about this week's Torah portion? All right. Well, so I won't forget, in order for me not to forget, because I don't know, I have my moments. I want to have someone, I want to throw it out there. I want someone to, okay, our Torah portion is going to end in chapter number 7. It's going to end in chapter number 7. And our maftir, or I would say, it's not, okay, I don't want to make it complicated. Boy, is that verse number 87? Yeah. Ooh, there's a lot of verses in chapter number 7. So the maftir is going to be the final conclusion of the Torah portion for this week. So I think it's appropriate that I would give you the chapter and the verse that I want you to give some information on, or what you know about it. It's only chapter 7, verse number 87 and 88 and 89. So there's 3 verses right there. Okay. I know that's not a lot, but it's a summation of everything that you've learned over the week. And that's one of the important things about the Torah. So what we're looking for is not for us to have like a sermon or anything, but just some points that popped out in your mind. You know, how do you feel about it, and what came to your mind after reading the Torah? So read the Torah portion this week, but also to understand that the maftir is the final reading of everything, as a summation of everything that's been said. So I want to hear what you have to say about what you learned over the week, and just give your comments and your contributions based on how you feel and what you read and what you understand. So think about that. And then at the end of the class tonight, if you would like to do that, you let me know. You can put it in the chat box. You don't have to say it publicly if you don't want to. You can surprise everybody with it on this coming Shabbat. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me share this with you right quick. All right, as you know, what I like to do in the Torah is I like to first tell us about what it is that we're studying and the name of the actual portion that we have. And so what we find, I don't know if you can see my screen, we're going to find it in the book of Bamidbar. And again, what does Bamidbar mean?
Numbers.
It's numbers, but in Hebrew,
census.
in the
In the
wilderness.
wilderness.
Okay. It's in the wilderness. So I always want you guys to understand that you got to keep this always in mind. Okay, when you're reading the Torah, you don't want to lose sight of where you're at, because where it's written in the Torah and what's the title of this in particular part of the scroll is called In the Wilderness. And in the wilderness, that's the backdrop of everything. So, you know, the wilderness is a place of desolation. It's a place of isolation. It's a place of Yah purging things out from his people. It's a place where Yah is going into organization, where he's organizing his people. Okay. And so that was the name of the first Torah portion, but it's also the name of the actual scroll, the division of the scroll. Okay. Here we are looking at this word called naso. Okay. Naso. Okay. And the chapters are going to be from chapter number 4 all the way to chapter number 7, verse number 89. A lot of verses. Okay. I'm just thinking about all the verses I have to read in Hebrew, right? But generally they'll give you a couple of chapters to look at, and each day you take a little portion of that and you read it. So naso, we're going to find out what that means tonight. Okay. What I like to do is share with you agriculturally what it means. And so let me see here. Where am I? Where's it? What's going on? Oh, new share. Okay. All right. So the English word that they have for the word naso, okay, it comes, they say take. He says, I want you to take a census. Right. And it seems very straightforward and seems like, hey, you know, that's pretty simple. Just count the people and you be on about your business. Right. It's a lot more than that. And that's why I wanted to share this with you, because the beauty of the language is it's imperative for our understanding. A lot of people blow the language off. They really do. They just think that hearing it in English and I heard a guy today, and I'm not going to say any names. He said, he mentioned some different things about the Shavuot, which is the festival that we had celebrated a few days ago. And he said, yeah, and he did pronounce it correctly, which I don't hold him to that. But he said, oh yeah, that's just, it means this in Hebrew and it means this in Greek and it means this in English. And he didn't do it any justice. He just kind of blew it off like there's different languages. So it's not a big deal what language is spoken in. It's still just a changing of the language. And that's where we're making our error. And that's where we're having our problems. Because if we don't understand our language and we don't understand our culture, then you and I won't understand in what setting everything was spoken to them and what is it that the Creator wanted them to really know, right? So this week, he's going to break this out for us. He's going to tell us what this means. So the first thing that we look at when we look at the Hebrew language is we look at the root. We always have to look at the root. Now, today we're going to be looking at the parent root. Okay, the root is a parent. Okay, so they got a parent root and they got a child root. Okay, and so the parent root consists of 2 letters. The child root is 3 letters. So when we're doing our biblical Hebrew, more than likely you will rarely see a parent root, a 2-letter root. You might see it, you might see it in Av, like father. You might see it like Aim, like mother. You know what I mean? You might see that. So Av is father and Aim is mother. So you'll see those things. But the root of the word is one of the most important things that you want to look for, because the root is going to determine what that stem is going to be like. It's going to tell you what the essence of it is. It's going to tell you the characteristics. And so if we don't know the root, then we don't know anything. Okay. It says you know a tree by its fruit, but you know a fruit by its root. So we're going beneath the surface to find out what things mean. Okay. So here we are. Our word is called naso, N-A-S-O. Okay. They wrote it in English as an N because the letter noon is the first letter. It's called transliteration. Okay. So the noon looks like this. Okay. like you see right here. Okay. And then the next letter that they have is what they call a samak. Okay. That's my handwriting, but here it is over here. All right. So that's the noon, N-U-N, okay, and the samak. Okay. Don't get confused and say, oh, well, I don't understand this, so I don't know the language. No, once you familiarize yourself with these letters, it'll come to you, it'll come and it'll leave, but you just got to keep sticking with it, okay? So the Hebrew root here is nas. And generally, a lot of the roots will tell you the action, they'll tell you the concrete meaning of it, and then they'll tell you the abstract, okay? Meaning, you know, that you can make up something or try to visualize with something. It's not attached to your eyes, or it's not really attached to your nose or anything like that. It's not really physical, okay? It's abstract, so you can't put your finger on it. But since the Hebrew language is a living language and is very active, it has an action. Everything in Hebrew has an action. It has a function, okay? So we're looking at how is this word of our Torah portion going to be functioning? So the first thing we want to talk about is the action. That's what AC means, to lift, okay? That's what it means, to lift. So when he talked about in English, they said in English, take a census, right? God's not asking them to take a census. He's asking to do something greater than that, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to lift them up. And I want you to, the reason why I'm lifting them up is because I want them to do something for me, okay? The concrete meaning, which we got here, the CO of it, the concrete is a standard. And this is a ensign. It is like a banner, you know, with the image, okay, that represents a particular family. So in Israel, each family had their own standard. They had their own banner. So, you know, from the tribe of Judah, they had a banner and it represented their color. I don't know if you guys ever watched Game of Thrones, but it's like, you know, every family has their color. Every family has their insignia. They all have their images. You know, one might be a lion, the other one was a wolf, and the other one is a castle, and the other one is a snake, a serpent, and the other one is a boat or a ship. The other one's a bow and arrow. The other one's a grain, you know, some wheat, you know, some fruit. So just depends on what family you were from, determine what banner you had. Okay. Also too, so that's what that means. The abstract of it is a refuge. And generally a refuge is somewhere someone's supposed to go or run to. Okay. They run to when they're in trouble. So if you had some problems with another tribe, the first thing you go do is you go run to your flag. Where's your flag at? You know where your flag's at. You got the color, you got the image, you know where and that's where you're going to find your protection. That's where you're going to find your family and what we would call your folks. You go find your folks in this place, okay? Because other people, they might be related to you through cousins and uncles and aunts and marriage and all that. But when things get really nasty, you go have to run to go find refuge back at your camp, okay? Because we're talking about a camp, all right? So let's take a look agriculturally what these mean, okay? So in Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, okay? This up here, these writings here are Aramaic. They're Aramaic script, okay? They're not the ancient. The ancient Hebrew script comes in what they call pictographs, okay? So what we have here is two pictures that we're going to look at, all right? So this first one is called the noon, and that represents the letter N, okay? Then we got this next one, which is called the samak, okay? Samek or samak, and it represents the letter S, it represents S, okay? But that's English translations. We want to know what does it mean agriculturally, okay? Which makes this really interesting. This in particular thing right here, which we call a seed, it represents a seed. That's what that image represents. And the idea of continuance, because that's what happens when you put a seed in the ground, it continues to grow, it continues to sprout. And so it's this idea of continuance. If you notice, it looks like a semen. a sperm cell. That's what we have. We have seed too. We have what they call zera. Okay. And zera, the man holds the zera, right? And then he has to plant the zera inside of the woman, right? Which she's the field. That's what a man and a woman's like. It's like him. That's why he literally says she's his possession, because that's the field that he's putting his seed in. Okay. So if anybody else comes along and they put seed into, they mix those two seeds together, Yah says now that's defiled. This is the reason why he says that a man that is married to a woman, he decides that, hey, I'm going to put her away from me. The moment that she leaves him, she cannot go back. He cannot go back to her, because then another seed has been into that land and then it's cross-contaminated. And Yah says, you now have defiled the land. So when the person splits, that's why I always tell people that I counsel, if you guys are going to split, then make sure that you for real, because there is no coming back. In Hebrew, there is no coming back. Okay. So once you're gone, and that's it. All right. So little side note. Now the next picture, you guys can tell I'm pretty thorough. The next picture is this thorn bush. Okay. This is what they represent, a thorn bush right here. Right. So it represents the idea of grabbing hold of something. That's what a thorn bush does. It grabs hold of you. And so when you put these two letters together, these two images together, they create this idea that has to do with to continue to grab hold of. Okay. To continue to grab hold. So then the question becomes, well, how do you reconcile that with the idea of lifting and a standard? And so we're going to go through these things, through this whole definition, so we can set the stage for the foundation moving forward for the rest of the week, because you would want to know these things when you're reading, because it'll all start making sense to you. Okay. So as we've talked about, Nas means, I didn't finish that part. So again, here is telling us that the tribal flag that is hung horizontally on a pole and lifted up high is seen from a distance. Okay. Now, from what you've studied so far, what tribe is around Yahweh's Mishkan, around his tent of meeting? What tribe is completely surrounding him?
Is it Levi?
Yes, it is. It's the tribe of Levi. Okay. And they're on the west side, they're on the east side, they're on the north, and they're on the south. In each one of these directions, okay, each family has to take whatever he assigned them to. So some families, one family's going to be in the west, one's going to be in the north, somebody's going to be in the south. And of course, from my remembrance, I know that Moshe, Aaron and his sons are located right here at the east gate, or the east entrance into the tabernacle where the sun rises. And then on the north, I believe is Kahath, but we have to look at that, or Gershon, one of those two. The west, you got another family, either Kahath, and in the south is Merari, I believe. Okay. So each one of these families have a responsibility. Now, what I do want to bring to your attention is those families like Gershon, was it Kahath? Yeah. Kahath and Merari, each one of these families, like I said, are designated. They're designated around Yah's, Mishkan. The Gershon cannot do the job of the Kahites. They can't do it. The Gershuni, they cannot do it. The Merari, they can't do it. He can't step in and take over for anything that he does, and he can't do anything for him. Their family from this family, Merari, they can't touch anything that they touch. If they do, they'll be put to death. That's how Yah has it lined up. That's how they've been designated. Okay. So all because you're from the family of Levi doesn't mean that you have the free, will to do what you want to do. Once you've been placed in that particular family, your role and responsibility to Creator is based on what's going on with that family. He chose that family to do that for him. You get out of line and you touch something that belongs to Gershon, and you're just trying to be helpful, as we've seen what Dawid did and what he allowed someone else try to do. Yah says, I'm killing you. If Aaron and them, the Kohanim, which is Aaron and his family, they're not allowed. Listen, there is no, hey, I need somebody to help me and make it up. Can you help me, Gershon? Or nothing. Aaron and his sons cannot do anything to touch that, them or them. Everybody is designated. So what can we learn from this? Well, we've been talking about how I've been bringing to our attention that, first of all, whoever's claiming to be a Kohanim, they're a liar. Straight up. They're lying. Okay. And a lot of us accept lies because we just feel like, well, they're just trying to be a priest and they're trying to be a spiritual leader and bring people together. They have no registry. I know I'm really tough on this, but it's to follow what Yahweh said. They have no registry. There is no sacrifice. There's no offering. And what can happen is they're going to try to take advantage of us, not just you, us, okay, by saying these things. It puts you in a position where you believe that they're closer to Elohim than you are. And then you'll start listening to them and you start following them. They'll start putting some burdens on you. All of a sudden you find yourself paying them as if they are the priest, and you have this guilt because you want to, be right with Elohim. And so you feel like he's a priest, so you should support him. I mean, all kind of stuff can go bad. Okay. We got to watch out for that. Likewise with the Levim, people are calling themselves Lewi. We have no registry. Okay. So they're saying they're from the families of the Gershoni, the Kahath, the Merari. What's the benefit of that? Well, they're supposed to be people who help provide maintenance to the temple. Well, there's no temple, so they're out of place. Okay. So they take on this position and say, well, I'm still a leader. I'm still part of that family. And they start making these claims. Okay. There's individuals that are even going around here, which we're going to find in the same book later on this week, that they're claiming there's a certain prayer that people are saying over, and I'm not just talking about Hebricians and rabbis and Christians. I'm talking about everybody has decided to pronounce the blessing on the people because they figured Yah told them that they could say it, but it's only for Aaron and his sons. And we'll get on that a little bit later. All right. So back to this word thing. The lifting up of these families and carrying them and bearing them, they're going to have to bear a certain amount of responsibility for their duties and their responsibilities to the Creator for themselves. We have testimony from Yah in the book of Ezekiel where he condemns them because they've allowed other people to come in and do the work that they were supposed to be doing. And we'll look later at that. So back again, the standard is a nas is a flag that hangs from a pole. We already talked about that in standard. And here are all the English definitions that they have, translated into: a sail, a banner, a pole, an ensign, a standard, those types of things. Okay. And then, of course, they use the word here, Manasseh, as a trial, right? Saying that, hey, I'm being tempted, got to find the connection there. And then, of course, in the Hebrew, you could take a parent root, which is the parent right here, Nas. These are going to be the parents of everything that we're going to be reading down. You're going to see that same parent root, and then they're going to add different letters to it. When they add the letter to it, it makes it a child root. I can't go over why that is right now. Later on, I will. But what I want to show you is every definition that we're going to go over, the Nas is in there. Okay. So it's the seed of continuance, and the thorn is a grabbing hold of. Okay. And then here they put another S on it. And that's called the geminate, which, forgive me, I'm just a teacher. I like to talk about those things. So this right here is a child root, but the child root is generally the mother always matches the daughter. So the first one is the father. That's the first letter of the root. The second letter is the mother. Okay. Right. So that's the basis. That's the foundation. This next letter right here in Hebrew, it says that's the first child that they have. And generally, the first child that they have, if it's a girl, she's going to be directly like her mother. The daughter will match the mother. So that's why you got two S's right there, right here, two samaks. Okay, so it's called nasas. Still, it still holds the same. It still holds the same definition to lift up, a standard, an ensign. So the reason why it's exactly almost the same is because these two letters right here are the same. The daughter and the mother are just alike. You know that saying that says like mother, like daughter? That's where they're probably getting it from, because in this language, the Hebrew language is a family of letters. So for example, the noon right now, we're talking about that which is in the family of the noon, the father. He's the father. This is his family. So what you're going to have is have all these words to start with a noon, and then out of them you might have another one that might have the samak, and then you got another samak, and then you might have a noon with a bet, which is called a navi. That's a whole nother family. And so every time you switch a letter, so you can go to the top. Every time you switch a letter, you're just in the same family, but a different clan. You know where I'm coming from? So the noon can be, I would look at it like this. The noon could be married to a samak. It could be married to a bet. It could be married to a gimel. It could be married to whoever, but they're still from the noon family. And so you can look at those letters and be like, okay, once you see the noon, you'd be like, okay, off the top, anytime you see a noon, you'd be like, oh, that means continuance. That means seed. Easy stuff to remember, okay? So the next one is called to compel, okay? Like a grabbing hold of something to compel it, to grab hold of one to perform something. I'm going to grab hold of you to compel you to do and perform the work that I want you to. Well, what you can see here is that they still have the same root right here, but what they've done is they've added another letter to it. And now these letters can be placed in the front of the root right here. It could be placed in the middle of the root, or it could be placed at the end of the root. Those of you who are in my Hebrew grammar class, you know there's something to be past, present, and future. Here, just by the root itself is developed in this way, meaning you'll take the family root right here, the foundation, the noon and the samak, and I could put a letter in front of it. I could take that same aleph and I could put a noon, and then instead of the aleph being in front, I could put the aleph next like this, and then I could put a samak like this. Then I could do a noon right here, and I could put the aleph right here, and then I could put the samak right here. Then I could do the noon right here, and then I could do the samak here, and then I could put the aleph at the end. You see? So those are the three different places that it could go. It could go in the middle, it could go in the front of the root, or it can go at the end of the root. Every one of these now would be considered one of the children, right? So there's three children right here that can be created off of this in particular family. So every family don't have the same amount of children, okay? I liken it to parents and children. Every family one family might have 2 kids. They might have 10, okay? In the Hebrew language, there's 13 different opportunities to have kids. There's 13 children that you can possibly have in the Hebrew root system, okay? And here's a wonderful part. 12 of them, okay? Listen to me. 12 of them will all be in those different positions, in the front, in the middle, or at the end, okay? Okay. Also, the 13th one, the end one, I look at the 12 as being the sons of Israel. And I look at the 13th one, the only one that's like the mother right here. I consider her the daughter because she matches exactly like the mother, which we know in the Hebrew, Jacob had 12 sons and he had how many daughters? He had one. He had one daughter and her name was Dinah. Okay. Just a little clue about how to work this language, which I'm going to teach you guys. All right. So grabbing hold also too is this idea of compelling. So when we talk about Yah saying, hey, I want you to go take a census, right? He's using the word nasa. He's not using this word anas. He's not using anas. He's going to use the word nasa. So we're looking for the word that has the noon, the samak, and the aleph. That's what we're going to be looking for. Okay. And listen what we have here. Oh, here it is. See that? The noon, the samak, and the aleph. And the action is exactly the same that it's always been, which is to lift. But now all of a sudden, it's not a standard, it's a burden. You see? So when Yah's calling these families out and he's saying Naso, okay, he's telling Moshe and Aharon to call out these families because I want them to lift a burden for me. Okay. The burden that they had to lift was the Mishkan. It's a burden. What was it? What was the burden part of it? Was it just physical or was it a great responsibility? It's a great responsibility that they have to lift. And we'll talk more about that later. Okay. So Nasa, which you get this word. Also, here you go. In English, NASA. What does NASA mean? What does it do? What's NASA?
To rise.
It's to rise, and it has to do with what? The rocket. Lifting what? Lifting off or takeoff. See, that's what it is lifting up. You understand? That's where they get that word NASA. It's really from this Hebrew word called NASA. Not on coincidence, okay? Just like the word, you guys got a Chevron gas station, right? You ever heard of Chevron? Huh?
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, guess what it's really named? It's really named after Kevron, which they called Hebron, which is in Jerusalem. That's where they get it from. See, when you know the language, you can be able to pick up on stuff, okay? Have you guys ever heard of Kevron or Hebron?
Hebron, yes.
It's from this word chevron. They just call it sh versus Kevron. See, they don't call it k, they call it sh, shev. So that's where that in particular name came from, okay? Moving on. So it's about lifting up a burden, and this burden is a load that he wants them to carry. And this is why he uses this word, and it makes sense. Okay. So when I study and I'm looking at the Torah, I'm looking for what does that first word mean, and how does it fit into what they're talking about, and how does it fit into our lives? What is it about this that he wants us to see? Why would he use this word? And why is it used so often in this in particular Torah portion? Why is he directly choosing these in particular families? You know, so for example, we look at Merari's name, and his name has to do with bitterness. And within these families, right, of these Levites, later on as we continue to read, you're going to see a whole bunch of problems out of these people, out of this in particular family. Out of this family, you have a lot of problems that come out of this in particular family. So yeah, they've been called, but then they have some inner problems. Some, what do they call it? Some internal struggles between themselves as a tribe. So it's division with even in the tribe. So for example, how many tribes do we have in our family?
12.
Got 12. Okay. Somebody tell me their names. Who's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth?
Reuven,
First.
Okay, so we got Reuben. Go ahead.
Shimon,
Shimon,
Lewi,
Lewi. Yeah.
Yehuda.
Yes.
Somebody else can pick up.
Issachar? Or
yeah, that's just a car. Go ahead. Somebody tell me.
is it Issachar?
Yes, you got it right. It's just a car. Okay, I won't make you guys tell me.
Zebulun.
Dan?
Zebulun, yay.
Oh,
there's
Zebulun? Yeah.
Okay, then who we got? We got Dan. Okay, who else?
God.
Yeah,
Asher.
yeah.
Naphtali,
Yeah. Who else?
Joseph,
Yeah.
Manasseh, and Ephraim.
Well, you forgot one. Benjamin.
Benjamin. Yeah.
Okay. So Benjamin, and then of course we got these other ones. There's not 14, which they would say is Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay. So when someone's asking, well, how did these tribes come, how did that come to be? Like, how did it come 12? But Yah says that he's taken Levi out for himself. So the Leviim are not included, right?
right.
Right. He said they're not included. So you guys got to be able to answer this question. They're taken out for Yah. He said he belonged to me. Take them out. So let's don't count Ephraim yet, and let's don't count Manasseh yet. Okay. Let's don't count them yet. So they're scratched. They're out. So now there leaves us with 11. Now that we took out one out of the 12, right?
Right.
Who or how did Yah replace it? How did it get from 11 to 12 and you got 2 over here? Because that would bring us up to
He
13.
split one tribe.
Huh?
Did he split one tribe?
Well,
Right.
he did, but he did something a little different. So what he did, listen, what he did was when Yaakov was about to die, he called his son Joseph and said, hey, come to me. I want to talk to you. I want to tell you what it is before I die. He didn't call none of the other brothers. He only called this guy. Okay, first. He called him first. He didn't call anybody else. And when Joseph showed up, he brought these 2 kids with him. Who's the oldest out of Ephraim and Manasseh?
I want to
Who's
say
the-
Manasseh.
It's Manasseh. Manasseh's number 1. And then the baby was this one. Okay. And of course, they all have meanings of the names, which I want everyone to write it down and figure out what does those names mean. Okay. That's your homework. You know what Lewi is to join. You know Yehuda's praise, where he wants to see his son Shimon, as you've heard. Yissakar's wages, Zevulun is dwelling, Dan is judge. God is fortune, and Asher is rich and wealth, and Naphtali is a wrestler, and Joseph is increased to gather and to add, and then Benjamin is the son of my right hand, and then Ephraim is fruitful, and Manasseh is the one who is, I forgot my trouble. Okay. Anyway, so the dad's about to die, and he tells Joseph, bring your sons. He brings both his sons, and Yaakov says he wants to bless him. So he switches his hands, and he puts his right hand on Ephraim, and he puts his left hand on Manasseh. He switches them, okay? And then so the father gets mad and says, hey, don't do that. And he says, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, son. I know what I'm doing. What Yaakov did at that moment is he conveyed a blessing onto Joseph's sons, and he put the blessing of the oldest on Ephraim, and he gave Ephraim the name Yisrael. He conveyed that blessed name on that in particular son. Okay, Yaakov received his name Israel from the Malach when he was wrestling with him. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. So when Yaakov was passing, before he passed away, he called on, listen to me carefully, he called on that Malach who did that for him. And he said, I want you to bless this in particular child, Ephraim, with my name, with that blessed name that you gave me. And so the Yaakov conferred the blessing of the firstborn on to Ephraim. And so Ephraim now is found in both, here it is, Ephraim, right? So he takes Joseph's place now. Okay. Kote Rivka, yes.
Yeah, Ephraim is going to get a double portion.
Right. He's going to be given a double portion. Absolutely. But what I'm saying now, so now there's Manasseh left, right? There's Manasseh. So where does he fit in?
The
He
other
fits-
half of that blessing.
He fits it. No, it's not the other half. He gave all of it to Ephraim.
Okay.
He gave it all to him. Okay. That's why he says in the book of Hosea that Ephraim, my firstborn son. So Manasseh goes into Levi's place. Okay. Ephraim takes his father's place, Joseph's place. That's what happened. And that's why you got 12 tribes. Okay. And of course, you were right, Yered, when Manasseh and I think half a tribe went over with Reuven and the Gadites. They went over there and half of them stayed and then half of them went over here, but to the other side of the Jordan. So you're correct in that. But the 12 tribes, Levi was taken out of the loop for Yah. Joseph is still there, but he's represented in name by Ephraim, who took on the name Israel. And Manasseh is put into this place over here where Levi is no longer part of that. So that's how you get your 12 tribes. And of course, we'll go over it and over again. Anyone have any questions so far? All right. So one of the we're still in these definitions here. Let me see right here. It's lexicon here. Let me see over here. All right, here we go. So where we left off was at the bottom over here, which it talked about a burden to lift it up. And I want to point out that the word nasa right here is an action, like a verb, and it means to lift, but it also has the idea of forgiveness. And when you it's a word that's used for it. Okay, so nasa means to forgive. In the idea of someone lifting and carrying a burden or a load and carrying it for you. So when you ask Yah to forgive, you can ask him to forgive you. You can use the word nasa. Okay? That's one of the words you should add to your vocabulary when you pray to him. Let me figure out a way that you I don't want to misrepresent it though. It means to forgive. Again, also a lifting up of what? A lifting up or an exalting of Yahweh's name. So not only is nasa for forgiveness, but nasa can also be understood as a lifting up and an exalting of something or having regard of something, okay? And then what they've done here is they've taken nas, and then put the tav on the end, and it's called a gift. It still means something lifting up, something giving, something regarding, exalting someone by giving them a gift. And then, of course, here it is again. If you notice, it's still in the same framework about a burden, and that's called Manasseh, okay? Manasseh, a burden. It could be they interpret it as a son to carry, tribute, prophecy. Because remember, I told you in one of our studies that in the book of Malachi, it doesn't say the prophecy of Malachi. It talked about the burden of Malachi. And Yahweh was talking to what family in the book of Malachi? He was talking to Levim, right? And he was more specifically addressing areas to the Kohanim from this family. They're still from the same family. They're just a different division. So within that, they have a burden to carry. Okay. And so that's the idea behind this particular word. And then, of course, later on in our studies, you're going to find out that there was a wagon that the children of Israel, when he asked them to bring forth their gifts, he told them to put it on the wagon. And there was, I forgot exactly. I think there was like, I don't want to be mistaken. There's 12 wagons. Okay. There's 12 wagons, but also too, there were wagons when they had to transport the items that were found in the Mishkan. I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, it was in a Mishkan. They used a wagon. And on the wagon, they would put the menorah. What's the menorah?
The candlestick.
The candlestick, okay? They would also put the shlukan. What's the shlukan? Take a guess. Shlukan. Ta'alrok dalafanai de shlukan naget zolrai. You have set a table. That's the table. The bread of presence is called a shlukan. Okay. So menorah, shlukan. And then we have what they would call the aron. What's the aron? What else do they have to carry? Aron. The aron is the box with the testimony in it. So what they would call an aron is really called an ark in English, but it's really called aron. Crazy, right? Like it's not Aaron or Aharon, it's Aron, and it means a box. That's what the ark is in. It's inside of a box. Okay, so they were responsible. Okay, when they carried the Aron, they carried those on poles, but the menorah, they had to put that on top. They couldn't carry that. They had to put that on top of that wagon. The shlukan, they had to wrap everything up and put that on top of the wagon. Okay. Then all the other things that they had to carry, they had to carry the other, the altar of incense. They had to carry that. They had to carry the other altar that was hollow, that was made out of bronze. So everything that had poles in it, they had to carry. Okay. But anything that didn't have a pole on it, they had to put on a wagon. All the utensils and all that kind of stuff. Just helpful. But as you can see, that's connected. Okay, the nasua. That's how you would say a wagon is called a nasua. So a nasua is a vehicle that's used for carrying burdens. Okay. Also, too, here it is. We still got the nas right here, and then they added some different letters to it, right? So you got a whole nother combination, but then the idea of respect is included in the sense of lifting one up. So you can lift up one in a good way, and you can lift someone up in a bad way, right? You can lift and carry burdens, or you and yourself can be a burden. So if we understand these concepts and we understand the culture behind what Yah is asking the children of Israel to do, and we have a better understanding, then we would better understand how do we live our lives in regard to what his expectations were. Because believe it or not, he was asking the Leviim to live a certain way, but they were doing everything they were doing for the benefit of the community. They took the place of the firstborn. So what they were doing was to show the children of Israel what they were supposed to be doing. Whatever lifestyle that the Kohanim were living, it was supposed to have been spilled down to everyone in the community. And what happens often is you would think that the person who's teaching the Torah, or a minister or a pastor or a rabbi, they're way, way up there. And Yah's saying, no. It may be a hierarchy there, right? In terms of how you could get close to Yah, but overall, he chose them to be the example to the rest of the community. Everybody, their job is to teach us on the difference between clean and unclean. Their job was to teach us the Torah. Their job was to help instruct us. So they weren't just elevated past the children of Israel for the sake of being elevated. I'm a Levine, you're from the tribe of Judah, you're less than me. No, what it means is I'm living the example to teach you on how to live, because there's only a certain group can come close to Yah. But that group that come close is not for the benefit of them, it's for the benefit of the people. That's where I have a problem with these so-called leaders out here. They're not benefiting the people, they're elevating themselves, they're lifting themselves up. Instead of they're lifting him up, they're lifting themselves up. Okay. So with this though, I just need us to understand, and this is the reason why there's no Leviim and no Kohanim right now. Yah had said that he would embarrass them and he would make them a laughing stock before the people, because they were primarily responsible for the downfall of the people, because they didn't put any respect, and neither did they lift up the Torah. They didn't lift it. They didn't kum. They didn't make it rise. They didn't make it stand. They didn't make it the most important thing in the community. What they did was they got sideways and they got caught up in the abundance of all the things they were receiving. And they got caught up in their positions, and they got caught up in the stature of who they are and what they represented. They lost focus of what this is all about. And this is one of the reasons why they're not available today. Yah has decided that I don't want to get to you through the Kohanim, and I don't want to get through to the Leviim. And anybody that's trying to take that position or stand in that place is doing you a disservice. I've already told you that I'm not a Kohanim. I'm not a Leviim. I'm your brother. We're all on the same platform. We're all working and walking through the same pasture. We're all eating from the same table. We're all drinking from the same river. He gets on a group of rams who butt his other sheep, and they were the leaders, and they bumped them, and then they fouled the water up and had them drink it because they're taking advantage of them. So you guys got to be careful, like who you're following, who you're listening to. Okay. And I'm telling you right now, if you ever hear me say something that he didn't say, please bring it to my attention, because we are not going to defile him. I'm not going to defile the waters for you. I want to bring us all the waters that I'm going to, right? You're drinking from, and so am I. I'm just showing you how I study so you could get sharp. So don't take the position like I'm just going to keep going to Bible study. No, you are the children of Israel. These are your laws. These are your statutes. These are your commandments. And you have to lift them up, and you have to take responsibility for them. That's what it is. Okay. And especially right now, because we're in exile. Okay. I think one of these other words is very important to me too, is this idea of test. An action is to test. Now we're not talking about lift up. Okay. We still got the noon. We still got the samak, which is to take hold and grab of. And now we got the hay. That's what we got. We got a hay on the end. Okay. So they will call that na-sa. Okay. Nasa. Okay. Or if you didn't say nasa that way, you could say na-sa. Nasa. Okay. So nasa. Nasa here, without the aleph, okay, doesn't have the aleph, it has a hay on the end. It means to test. A test to prove one is deserved of being lifted up. Okay. So when we think about this, we're thinking about Levi, because it's the family we're dealing with right now. Think about what was the test for them? Somebody tell me, well, how are they proven to be deserving of this position of carrying Yahweh's burden? What happened? How were they tested? How did they get their position to take the position of the firstborn? How did they get that?
Oh, when there was when Moshe asked who was on the Lord's side, Yahweh's side, they were the only ones that came forward.
You're the only ones. Yes. Go ahead.
Right. Killing even their family members. And that's the kind of zeal Yah wants.
Yeah, and he rewarded Pinchas for the same thing. He said, "Oh, I can give you a covenant of shalom forever. You get peace with me because you just killed this guy, and you stopped the plague, and you stabbed him and her. Great job. You and your descendants will always be before me." Because they had some zip, they had some zeal, and they had some zest for Yahweh. Okay. But he's not saying that it only belongs to Levi or the Kohanim. I need you to understand what I'm saying to you. What he wanted was for everybody to stand up and get on that side and say, no, we're not taking this. They didn't take a passive approach and say, I'm going to stand by and do nothing. Yah's looking for somebody. Who else had zip and zest and zeal for Yah who wasn't from the tribe of Levi? The Yah says, oh, yeah, I like you. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you what you asked for. Who did he tell that to?
Was that Caleb?
Caleb, the dog. See, his name means dog, meaning loyal. You understand? So Yah's given us the history. Okay, we're getting a historicity here to find out what it is that Yah's looking for. So he chose this tribe to be the example to everybody. I want you to have that same zeal for me. I want you to lift it up. I want you to lift up a banner. I want you to have high regard for me. I want you to know for sure that the respect that you have for me, you know for sure that I've proven to you that I'm worthy of all praise and all admiration. But also, too, I got to test you to find out if you're deserving to be lifted up. Because trust me, I'm not going to lift up anybody that's not worthy and deserving of being lifted up. So I know we've been taught that the whole group is going to be lifted up. I told you we got to get prepared, because when we get there, there's some people that is zealous for Yahweh and will be our leaders. Okay. I'm just practicing, because I said, you know what? And this is what I want you to do. I'm not just saying this for myself. I said, you know what? You rewarded people for, standing up for you. You rewarded people for believing you and trusting you. You rewarded people for doing what you said. You rewarded those who were on your side. So I'm learning that I can't take the side of anybody that doesn't take his side. That's for me personally. I'm never going to take the side of anybody who doesn't take his side. I'm with Dawid. I hate all those who he hates. And I hate him with a perfect hatred, because we know that hatred doesn't mean I'm emotionally angry. It means that I'm going to put some distance between us. Okay. The last one, or here it is, there's two of them here, but it's virtually the same. The last one we have here is called nos. And so we have this idea of fleeing. So we got a test, we got a lifting up, and now we got a fleeing. What happens? Well, when would someone flee? Well, they're going to flee when something takes place. What's taking place? Well, I told you refuge had to do with the family. It goes to the standard as a place of refuge for one that flees to. So if there's ever a problem, you need to run to safety, and you'd have to find out where's the safest place for me to get to. And you would recognize that by seeing this in particular standard with your family's insignia on it. Okay. And you would run there for protection, especially if you were guiltless. Okay. Because there were troubles and there was problems. People would chase people and people would get upset. We're human. This wasn't no spiritual, magical place. This was life. Okay. So a fleeing is part of this as well. So we want to look at that aspect of it as well when we go through our studies the rest of this week. So what is a refuge? A place of safety. Okay. Now, somebody tell me, and that's pretty much it. So there's all these, I don't expect you to remember all these different words, but someone tell me, what was it, or what is it that the Leviim were supposed to do? Besides carry these things, what were they supposed to do?
Tend to the tabernacle.
Yes. And they're supposed to guard. Okay. So literally, if you're guarding, right, you become a guardian. Okay. So they're guardians, and not of the galaxy. They're guardians of the Mishkan. Okay. Everything that's in there, they got to guard it. They got to keep people from coming close to it. There's a barrier that Yah put around the Mishkan and his presence. Also, too, in the book of Ezekiel, he talks about how there's going to be a space of land, I think 1,500, if I'm not mistaken, yards or something. I don't want to misinterpret what, or something like that. But there's a space that's between the temple of Yahweh, which we would know as the Mohel Ohed, that he says that it's going to be around the temple. So no one can just come up, and there's always going to be guards. Okay. And again, they're just an example for us to look at and understand, like, okay, well, what do we need to do? You and I are essentially going to have to take on the attitude of a guardian. That's what you and I have to do. Remember, he put them in place to guard. So what does he want us to understand about this? Because they're not around. Does that mean that the tabernacle or that which was in the tabernacle don't supposed to be guarded? You and I are going to have to guard Yahweh's words. That's what this is about. So that's the foundation of our study for tonight. We are going to get a little bit deeper on, of course, during the week and the Shabbat. So do I have any volunteers to go on chapter number 7 for those 3 verses, 87 through 89? Someone that wants to speak for just a few moments on Shabbat to give us your what Yah has told you or given you about that in particular part of the passage and what you've seen, and you can adapt that to your comments.
I'll do it.
Hey, who said that? Is that the scholar? Yeah.
Hey.
That's Yared. So his name means to descend. Our brother has descended upon us and said he's going to do it. Yay! Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Put your taste on it. You know, we're not looking for any, theologians or nothing. We're just looking for us to just say what you see in it and how it could be beneficial, And I know you go put a real good eye on it. Praise the Holy One. And, and then you inspire others to do the same. And I want to be encouraging to everyone that we have to all come to start talking to each other. Well, because I want to know that you guys are learning. That's what I want to know. I want to know that, the time that we're spending together, you're picking up what Yahweh is trying to get us to, what he's putting down. That's what it is. Thank you so much for that, Yared.
Total robot.
Total robot. It's your preference. Do you want to do it in the beginning or the end of the lesson?
Beginning is good.
Okay, cool. We'll have you do it at the beginning. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so truly excited about that. Hallelujah. 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 Praise be to our King. Any
If
other
you
comments?